Ephraim Kishon, the great Jewish author, once said that long-term marriage is impossible, but there are occasional mishaps. So today, we are going to address this very question. Is long-term marriage possible at all? And welcome to my show. My name is Dr. Rועי Yuzevich, and this is the World of Rועי Yuzevich, when I host interesting and inspiring people from all around the world, mostly in Hebrew, but occasionally in English, because there are a lot of very inspiring and interesting people who speak only English. And today, I'm honored to welcome on my show Rabbi Manis Friedman. Rabbi Friedman is first and foremost a Rebbe Shaliach, a word I just can't translate because there is no translation to the word Shaliach, just like there is no translation to the word Torah. He is a profound thinker of Judaism and its value, and the conflict of Judaism with Western and modern values. So Rabbi Manis, many thanks for joining me today on the show. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, staying out of trouble, sitting at home,
yes,
enjoying it.
We are filming this a week before Tisha B'Av, so I hope that next week you will be here in Jerusalem. So if you need a place to sleep or stay over, you can call me and we will arrange you some room. Okay? Okay, so let's start. The subject of today is marriage and divorce in the 21st century. And from a materialistic point of view, are or is long-term marriage even possible? So let's start with, in one of your most viewed talks, you said that divorce is not an option. So before I start ask you about this very intriguing and important phrase, could you please elaborate on this sentence? What does it mean that divorce is not an option? Because I know, and the Torah know, that divorce is an option.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a trick sentence. Divorce is not optional because when you don't need it, you don't do it. And when you do need it, you have no option. So divorce may be necessary. It's never the option.
Okay.
So as long as a person can be married, they should be. When they can't, that's when divorce comes in.
Okay, so which leads me to the next question. How do I know where there is an option? Because I think that all of the people who got divorced that I know said, yes, it wasn't an option, it was necessary, but I believe from an outsider that in some cases it's not the case. So how can you distinguish between an optional and necessary?
It's hard to distinguish because we can't put ourselves in the other person's shoes. If I was married with this problem, I would not have to get divorced. But that's me. I can't judge somebody else. So what we do is you try to make the marriage more appealing. You try to get them to think out of the box a little bit, break some of the old habits. That could change their opinion. If it doesn't work. So when a person says, think I should get divorced? The answer is always no. Why? Because you're asking. If you can ask the question, then you don't need to get divorced. Fix the relationship. But when a person comes and says, I can't, well, if you can't, then no advice is going to help you. But you see, with this lockdown, people stuck in the house together, many couples who felt or thought that they could not go on, all of a sudden, they want to go on. They're starting to like each other.
But, okay, so two things. One, in one of your talks, you said that people, that there is couple coming to you and say, we want to get divorced, and my husband is awful and my wife is awful, and they ask you, do you think we need to get divorced? And you said, I think that you are already divorced. I think that you will be a great couple. Yes. So
try getting married.
Try getting married. But we know from statistics that people tend to get divorced a lot more after holidays, after Pesach, after Rosh Hashanah, when they are stuck together 7 days. So they are usually, I thought that I can stand my husband, but after being 7 days with him and his mother, I just can't stand him anymore. So the lockdown has like two sides, no?
I think the first week was hard. Then it started to get easier.
And we usually, and we always stop after the first week. Oh, this is nice.
And you're looking forward to it the whole week. You're looking forward for the week to end. But this was different. This is like, we don't know if it's going to end, when it's going to end. And all of a sudden, we appreciate having each other.
Okay. This is nice. This is a very, very nice touch on the subject. Now, from my perspective, and I speak about marriages and divorce in Hebrew, it usually, you get the feeling that you are not supposed to say anything bad or anything bad about divorce. So divorce must stay an option. And if you say divorce is not an option, people say, listen, you are a religious fanat. So would you consider this as well when you speak? Would you consider that in our times, you cannot say anything bad about the divorce?
You can't dismiss divorce or demonize it. You can't. But you have to locate where it belongs and where it doesn't belong. Because as much as divorce is necessary when it's necessary, it's also a tragedy.
Yes. I always said that the one person who is more responsible who is like the biggest responsible to divorces in the 20th century was Walt Disney. Because Walt Disney, in his movies, created the illusion of the perfect marriage, the perfect relationship that ends when the two people got married. I would even argue that our role model in Western society of the perfect couple are Romeo and Juliet, which were never a couple. They never had to argue whether to do Christmas at your place or at my place. So what do you think are the ramifications that our role model of being together is Romeo and Juliet?
I think the villain is love. The reason Romeo and Juliet are exciting is because they were so much in love. And love is more important than marriage. In fact, the only reason you get married is out of love. And that's a terrible fiction. It's not just Walt Disney, it's the whole Hollywood. That love is important, and that love is a worthy goal is a big mistake, particularly the way it's presented in Hollywood. So a couple come to me and say, as long as we're talking about controversial statements, a young couple come to me and they say, we are very much in love, we want to get married. Will you do the wedding for us? I said, do you love each other? They said, yes. I said, too late. Now you can't get married anymore. They said, what do you mean? I said, the only reason you're getting married is for the love. You already have it. What are you going to gain by getting married? See, marriage cannot be about something. I have to be marrying you, not something I want from you. So the best example is a man says to a woman, I want to marry you for your money. You have money. I love money. So, perfect shidduch. Why is that wrong? And what's wrong about it?
This is wrong because whenever we address this kind of an issue, we said, or we might say, you married her for the money. What if she doesn't have money? Or what if the money ends? Or what if something else happens? Or what if you get tired of being so rich and you want to move on? Yes, we want to upgrade our smartphone every 2 years. So if we are in a society that always changes, that always wants to upgrade, marriage is like the complete opposite.
Right. So you don't want to marry someone for a temporary benefit. What's not temporary?
It's very hard because you said, I want like a personality, but we know that people change their personality throughout lives, and people change their personalities throughout experience. And I know, there is one talk that I heard from you about Sharansky, Nathan Sharansky. And you said that he was taken from his Sheva Brachot to like 20 years in jail. And you said, usually people say after 20 years that you are being with someone as you get to know him and you love him, so there is a bond. But his wife from the Sheva Brachot, like 4 days after the wedding, was so attached to him that she followed him for 20 years in jail. But you know, and I know, that this is an extraordinary story because it is so rare. We can't, it's very, I think it's almost impossible to achieve this kind of attribute.
To that degree, possibly, but it's a good role model. It was 10 years, I think, that she ran around trying to get her husband released from prison. Her husband. Now, you can argue, you know, she was not, I mean, he was barely her husband. 4 days, I mean. But that's the power of marriage. So, you're right. When you get married, it's for the rest of your life. So that you have to be marrying something that isn't going to change.
What is not going to change?
What's not going to change?
I have no idea.
If I shouldn't marry you for the money, because the money can disappear, I shouldn't marry you for love, because the love will disappear before the money.
But let me quote on Torah, and forgive me that I only know to do it in Hebrew, so you need to translate.
I can read it, it's good. It's
okay,
good.
So we know, ויקח יצחק את רבקה, ויאהביה. How would you translate it?
He brought her into his mother's tent, and he loved her. So
he first took her, and then he loved her, because we in Hebrew distinguish between two things, like I think also in English, between falling in love, which means התאהבות, which means oxytocin and dopamine, which you can measure in your blood. This is like the chemical manifestation of love. This is falling in love, and this ends after 3 years. This ran out of your blood, this substance, and there is love, which are much more transcendent, which are much more spiritual. So you are not getting married out of falling in love. You should marry for get to love. Yes?
Yeah. So what is the difference? The difference is, do I want you in my life, and the love makes the relationship more enjoyable? Or do I want love in my life, and I think you can provide it? But if you don't provide it, I don't need you. So who am I marrying, and what am I marrying?
And what is you?
Yes. Yeah. So a man said, I love everything about my wife. Sounds pretty good. Then you have to wonder, why does his wife want a divorce? something at the, the cheshbon is not. So I asked him, you love everything about your wife? He says, yes. I said, do you love her? He said, I love everything about her. I said, not about her. Do you love her? He said, I don't know what that means.
Neither do I.
If you take everything away, what's left?
Usually
so
nothing.
I'm married to her, not to her money, not to her love, not to her good looks, not to her family, just her. What is just her? And why do I need her? Okay, here is the real secret of marriage. In recent years, in marriage counseling, there's been a shift and a change. In previous years, couples came for marriage counseling because they didn't like each other. They couldn't get along. Suddenly, a couple of years ago, people came for marriage counseling and they like each other. They're just frustrated because in a quiet moment, she feels like she's all alone in the world. And he feels that he is all alone in the world. There's nothing wrong with their marriage. It's working, they like it, no complaints. But I'm all alone in the world. And that's frightening because when you're married, the first thing that changes is that you're not alone. So what is going on that a person can be happily married and still feel alone in the world? It's because they are not married to each other. They have a very comfortable, functional arrangement.
Contract.
But they're not married to each other. So what is the other? Here's the shocking thing. A person will change. Their character will change. Their wealth will change. Their looks will change. And their opinion will change. And that's what I want. I want to be married to a person. Because without that person, I am alone in the world. Living with a person who is giving me everything I want, everything, I'm still alone in the world. There's just me, and I'm getting everything I want. But there's just me. So the aloneness. You listen to popular songs, popular singers?
Yes,
Billy
yes.
Joel?
Yes, but unfortunately, I don't understand the lyrics in English. I just listen to the rhythm, to the music, but try.
Okay, so there was a very popular song by Billy Joel, nice Jewish boy. The song is about people sitting at a bar. And the one line that is brilliant, he says, they're sharing a drink that is called loneliness. But it's better than drinking alone.
This is nice. I want to add something with your permission because I want to add some aspect of Judaism because everything here is Judaism. When God says that he wants to add a woman to the Adam, he says, "Lo tov hiyot ha'adam levado." It's not good that the human being is alone, but the human being wasn't alone. He had God with him. And we know that even God with you is insufficient. You need another person. But but this could be any person. So why does this? Why does she? What makes she the person for you? Or that you don't believe in she is perfect for me. You just need, I needed just another human being.
It would be so nice if it could be just any other human being. We would be very healthy people. Because that's what we need, is someone beside me. And by quoting that pasuk, two things. First of all, you say we're not alone because God is with us. That's what the pasuk is saying. God says it is not good to be alone. He's describing himself. Adam ha'elyon. So he's referring to himself as Adam. Lo tov hiyot ha'adam levado. So he's telling you why he created the world. Because before he created the world, what was wrong? He's perfect. When he was completely alone, the only thing that existed was him. So what's the problem? That's the problem.
The aloneness, the loneliness itself, the loneliness as a virtue is something that we want to dismiss from our existence.
Not because we're weak and not because we're helpless. God is perfect and he doesn't want to be alone. Why? Because lo toiv, there's nothing good about it. Being completely capable of taking care of myself and being able to live by myself, what's good about it?
Okay, so please, so let me, with your permission, attack you with another midrash that we know that ever since the creation of the universe, the only thing that God does is set people together, which means that setting the right person or the right husband to the right wife is very, very challenging task to achieve. So therefore, it's still away from your premise or your initial premise that we need just another human being.
Realistically, another human being can be a very painful addition to my life. So in order to become one, and that is the purpose, that is the purpose of marriage. And by the way, in order to achieve that basar echad, you have to leave your mother and father. Al ken yazov ish es aviv esimo. You can't be one with your parents. To your parents, you're number 3. You're never number 1. Only with a wife, only with a husband. So in order for that oneness to happen, given human conditions, and you want to make sure that the person you marry doesn't have any characteristic that will not let you accept the person. So for example, you should see what the other person looks like. You never get married blind. Right? The Gemara says, you must see the person before you marry. Why? Because you can't help the, al-tam v'reach. You can't decide what you're going to feel comfortable with or not comfortable. So if you meet the person and you don't like her looks, you're not comfortable. There's nothing you can do about it. So look at her first. Make sure that her looks will not be a problem. Now you can marry her, not her looks. But make sure the looks are not a problem. Eliminate the problems so that you'll have an easier time to become one.
But Rabbi, when I know this midrash, and the midrash says that you need to get looks out of the way. But what's the distinction between to see your spouse before the marriage and to live with your spouse before the marriage and get his tidiness or other annoying attributes out of the way? Why looks is one thing, and getting to know him, getting to know her is another thing that you need to accept, because we don't supposed to live with our spouse before we get married.
That's true, but we do check out the personality, the family, the friends. Of course we check personality. You won't know everything. But you don't get married to just a person off the street. So you can find out all about the person without seeing her. So the Gemara says, no, it's not enough. Go take a look. So here's the point. What about those surprises that we're going to find, things that we didn't know and don't like? So here's the beauty of it. Before I marry you, everything that bothers me about you is a red flag. But once I marry you, everything about you is now mine. And mine I can handle. So if you have a problem and we are married, then it's my problem. My problem I can handle. But before I marry you, it's your problem. Why should I handle it? So this is the beauty. If I am married to you, then whatever faults you have are acceptable. From a stranger, I would never put up with it. Like my children's problems, I have to live with. Your children,
okay,
I don't want to have to put up with.
I don't know how to put it in a way that it will be that I won't insult anyone. But what you just said is the wonderful vote. Is a wonderful thing to wonder about, to ponder about. But how do you incorporate it into real modern day marriage? I can't take what you just told me if I have two separate bank accounts. It can't live together. If you and I are basically the same person, we can't have two different bank accounts.
Why?
Because why should we have two different bank accounts?
Tax purposes.
Okay, but okay. So let me phrase it differently. So there is not your money, my money. We are in Western culture. We don't speak in we speak in I. There is a wonderful phrase. There is no I in team, but you just stick it on the wall. Western culture, from Renaissance on, said everything about me, the individual, pico della mirandola. Everything is me, the self. And now you are telling me that we need to be not me, but we. And we are living in a Western culture where we put so much emphasis on the me. So it's basically impossible what you're just telling me.
It is impossible. And it's also impossible to live with that culture. It's a decadent culture. You can't live like that. Because now people are suffering, and it's even a health crisis, this loneliness. Me, and you're all alone in the world. So you got to make up your mind. Like most people say, leave me alone. Oh, really? You want to be alone? No. Don't leave me alone. So make up your mind. And there's only one way to go. It's not about me. Otherwise, don't get married. Don't inflict your needs on another person. It's not nice.
So what should we do in our, because you said you shouldn't get married out of love or for love. And let's say Marwin Yalom, who wrote the book The History of Wives, said that romantic marriage is very late or very recent very recent in Western culture. But nevertheless, we are in a place, in an era when we do romantic marriage. I can't set a shidduch for my daughter in the 21st century. So how can I take something from you to my secular, or I myself are not secular, but how can I take your wisdom or the wisdom of the ancient to my secular world?
Well, the only way is to become disenchanted with this secular way, because it's not working and it's causing more pain than pleasure. So when we give it up, it's like idolatry, you know? It's like the idol of love has become a religion, literally. We kill for love, we die for love, we worship love. It's a religion. And it's a fake God, false God. So it's going to fail. And it is failing. It's failing terribly. Some people are starting to realize, if you want love, then go look for love. Don't look for marriage. If you love marriage, then find somebody who also loves marriage, and together you can make it work.
And you would say that, you know, in ancient times, having kids was like an insurance policy for you when you get old. I take care of you when you're a baby, you take care of me when I'm old. Now in Europe, where the government takes care of you, people make much less children because they don't need to. And I think that marriage was basically, or in ancient times, like a settlement for having kids. And if you're not having kids, what's the purpose of marriage? Now, you know, and I know that there is a rule in the Torah: if you are married 10 years without children, you need to get divorced. The rabbi didn't get divorced, but nevertheless, the purpose of marriage is children. And you are saying something completely different. The children, your child will only be number 3 or 4 or 5. You need to get married for the uniteness of being one. So how does this sit with having children?
Having children is a mitzvah. Getting married is a need. Intimacy is a human need, as important as food, and healthier. So even if there aren't going to be any children, you still have a need for marriage. So it's not true that the only purpose of marriage is children. In the olden days, meaning more than 1,000 years ago, before Rabbeinu Gershom, having children, populating the world, was the most important thing. And that's why you were allowed to have 2 wives, because with 2 wives, you can have more children than with 1. A woman did not have 2 husbands because she can still only have 1 child a year. So in those days, the focus was on the children. When that stopped and the focus became on each other, then having 2 wives was no longer workable. It was leading to disasters, and it was banned. It was a chidam. So children are really out of our control. You can't control whether you're going to have children or not. Marriage is very much in our control. So it can't be that the whole purpose of marriage is for something that we can't control. So as important as children are, it's a separate mitzvah. Marriage stands on its own. In fact, the health of the children is to a great degree determined by the health of the marriage. Not only in how you raise the child, even in how you give birth. If you give birth to a child out of oneness with your spouse, the child has a head start on life. Without that, the child will struggle.
Now, when I did the research for the interview with you, I went on to Wikipedia, your page, and then I let me just read it. Lynn Davidman interviewed a number of your students in 1983. And this is because you said that marriage is a need while having children is a mitzvah. This is the distinction that you made just right now. And she quoted Friedman saying that a woman violates herself if she were to refrain from having children, and that birth control is a violent violation of woman's being. So I say, I understand from you that there is another aspect beside children to women or in her marriage, no?
Yes, I was talking more for the man. The mitzvah is on the man. That's why, in order to fulfill that mitzvah, if after 10 years of marriage there are no children, he divorces his wife so that he can fulfill the mitzvah of having children. But that's only on the man. For the woman, it's true. For the woman, it's not a mitzvah. It's her nature. Yeah. It's a natural instinct. And there was a very popular book that came out around that time called Baby Blues.
Like Baby Boom.
No,
blues. Blues. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The sadness of not having a baby. So here's the main point. Intimacy is a need. Sex is not. And that's another terrible disinformation that Hollywood spreads, that you have to have sex at least once a week. Okay, once a month. A few times a year, at least. You can't go without sex. It's not true. It's an interesting thing. This guy was taking a poll, and he stopped the guy in the street, and he said, "How often do you think of sex in a given day?" The man said, "I don't know. Maybe if you stop asking me, I'll figure it out. But everybody's always talking to me about sex. I don't know how often I would think about it. Stop bombarding me with the message and the reminders and the advertisements, because it's not natural anymore." So Hollywood or the media produced a need for sex and dismissed the need for intimacy, particularly in the 60s. Free love. Free love literally meant have sex without intimacy. It turns out intimacy is a real need and sex is not. So it's like saying, instead of getting married, why don't you have chocolate? Eat a lot of chocolate, it's just as good. No, it's not just as good.
I thought that the Rambam himself in Ilchot Deot said that you need you reach to a point then you should make sex because it's like a physical need. But I would say with you that intimacy is much more important and the basic need than sex, than the physiological aspects of sex. Now,
and that's why you can never have enough sex. The fact that you can never have enough proves that you don't need it. Because that which is a real need, you satisfy. You don't always need to eat. When you're hungry, you eat and then you're not hungry. Because eating is a real need. But chocolate, you'll never have enough. Why? Because you don't need it. So when will there be enough?
I think that this goes with another thing that you said, that psychologists and shrinks invented many needs that are entirely not needs in Western culture.
So it's an amazing thing that the two things that are ruining marriage is love and sex.
And people usually get married for love and sex. So
Yeah.
what are the extraordinary benefits of being a united creature, husband, wife, and why, for the sake of God, bother doing and feeling the way you suggest?
Hmm?
Why to bother? What's the benefits that I get of being, I won't be alone in the world? I won't feel alone?
So the real question is, what is so terrible about being alone?
Okay.
The first main answer is, it's not acceptable. It's like not breathing. It's just not, it's not a life. Life is to have someone with you. Otherwise, you're just existing and you have no life. Even God, whose existence is perfect, was not satisfied without having someone beside him. That's why he gave us freedom of choice, so that we are not him. Because if we are him, then he's alone again. So that's the main benefit, the main blessing of marriage, is that it's not just you.
But you are not speaking about not being alone in the mammal things, that we are mammals and we need like a group or a pack. You are speaking, or you're talking about something completely different. You're speaking or talking about like something spiritual, which leads me to the next question that I want to address. If from a materialistic point of view, I had Yaron Brook on the show, the president of the Ayn Rand Institute, and Ayn Rand Institute focus only on the self, objectivism. It's only me. Even the marriage is the contract that benefits me. As long as it benefits me, it's great. When it stops, benefits me, I should go. So even Yaron, so what I wanted to ask you, from an atheist or materialistic point of view, how can I relate to what you are saying? Because I don't believe in like in the uniteness, in the spiritual uniteness. How can you transfer your ideas to someone secular, not in his acting, but in his way of thinking?
You can't. That thinking has to change. As long as you're focused on yourself, your marriage is not a marriage and you don't need it. Whatever benefits you're getting, you can get for money. You don't have to be married. What is the unique benefit of marriage that you can't get anywhere else or any other way? Then we know what marriage means. But if you're looking for marriage to have someone to talk to, that's not unique. You can talk to anybody. You can pay to have someone listen to you, and they'll listen better than your wife. And they won't talk back. So here's the key. The key is we have focused way too much, not only on the selfish individualism, but on the neediness of the human being. Modern thinking has turned the human being into a kvetchy complainer who is needy all the time. I need this and I need that, and I have to have this and I have to have that. It's miserable. It's a miserable life. First of all, because you can't get everything you want. Secondly, when you get what you want, you realize I don't really want it. You're like a spoiled child. You demand, and then you get it, and you say, no, I don't want it. So here's really the punchline of the whole thing. The needs are depressing. We can't take it anymore. I need to go to school. I need to get a job. I need to pay the bills. I need to make friends. I need to be popular. I need to have sex. I need to have fun. It's misery. It started off like, whoa, you can do anything in the freedom of the modern world. You can go, you can take, you can travel, you can buy. Now it's like, leave me alone. It's too burdensome. Like the comedian who says, why do we have to have a house? You need a house to keep your stuff, a place for your stuff. And then you put a lock on the door to protect your stuff when you go out of the house, to get more stuff. And eventually you have so much stuff that you want to run away. So you go on vacation with very little stuff. So we're living a frustrating, miserable existence. So what happens? You go to the therapist. You say, I got too many needs. I got too many needs.
By the way, it's both secular and religious people as like. It's not that the tradition that you are trying to tell us are transparent or accessible even to religious people. I think that the lion's share of your clients are religious, or some of the clients are religious, and you can't say, yes, my religious clients are much happier or less miserable than my secular clients. No?
They're more miserable. You know why?
Why?
Because they're thinking secular. Here's the problem. When you go to the therapist because you have too many needs, the therapist doesn't really help, because he tells you that you have needs you haven't thought of yet. You think you have needs. Why? Because you need to pay your bills. What about the fact that your mother never wanted you? What about your sibling rivalry? You know,
I always tell my students, that the main that Freud introduced the concept that your parents are responsible to everything bad that happened to you in your life. But there is another concept that you also have a little bit of responsibility. Now, school made you learn very, very bad, but now it's university and you need to take the responsibility. You are also responsible for your life. It's your mother and your father and God and everything, but it's also a tiny bit of you.
Yeah. Your mother made you who you are. It's up to you to accomplish something as you are. Anyway, but the point of it is, if you get frustrated by the psychologist because he's just adding more needs, so then you run to religion. Figure, where am I going to, maybe I'll go into religion. You know what religion says?
What?
You think when you die, your needs will be over? No. You will have needs then too. But thank you very much. Now there's no escape altogether. There's no hope. The problem is that religion and psychology and modern thinking all focus on how needy you are. And it's all a lie. I am not needy. I didn't come into this world needy because I didn't need to come into this world. I don't need to be born. I don't ask to be born. So how can I be needy? I don't need anything. If I could get deep down inside, past my subconscious needs, I would realize that deeper, under that surface, I don't need anything. Why would I need anything? The only motivation that has ever been sold and promoted is based on fear. You need to get a job because without the job, you're going to starve. You won't be able to pay for a house. You'll be out on the street. You're going to die from a disease. Everything boiled down to a threat. The farmer gets up early in the morning and he milks the cow and he plows the field. Why? Why? Because if you don't do that, you're going to die. Need has driven society, civilization, progress. Everything came from need. And need, if you really get down to it, is a threat. You want to die?
No.
You want to get sick?
No, no.
You want
no.
to suffer? You want to go to hell? All threats. Something good is happening in our world today. Don't threaten me. It's not working anymore. I don't need this.
And this might be an answer to another question that I wanted to ask you, because you said that everything is based on me, about my needs, and this is a lie, and we don't have so many needs, etc., etc. But we know, and I feel that marriage become even more impossible in the last 10 or 20 years, like being a millennial. But the needy things is like is 500 years old. So how come just in the last 10 or 20 years, it became such an impossible task? Because I can't have this fear, because don't threaten me anymore. This is a reason why?
It worked not only for 500 years, for 5,000 years. You have to. Now we woke up and we're asking, I have to. Let me give you a quick this yeshiva boy went off to France from America to yeshiva. He didn't succeed. He came home. It was too, the culture shock was too much for him. But he came home a changed person because of one little conversation. The day that he arrived in the yeshiva, he went into the office and he said to the mashpia, I need to call my mother. Which phone can I use? The mashpia said, Ani tzarich. He said, yes, I need to call my mother. And he said again, Ani tzarich. He said, what do you want from me? What am I saying wrong? The mashpia said, you don't need to call your mother. You mean your mother needs you to call her. Why can't you talk straight? Why is it about you when it's not about you? You should call your mother because she needs you to call her. You don't need to call. This is true of everything in life. Think of one thing that I need. Tell me one thing I need. To eat.
To eat,
Huh?
to breathe. You can eat.
So what's going to happen if I don't eat?
I will starve, I'll be hungry, I will starve, and then eventually I will be thin.
Which is what I need. So actually, I don't need to eat. I need to stop eating. I don't need to eat. Oh, you're going to die. Don't threaten me, okay? I don't need to eat. And if I die, I don't need to live either. So stop threatening me. Why do I need to live? I don't. I don't want to die.
But this is a completely different story.
I don't need to live. So what does it mean, I need to eat? As if it was my idea? I think it's crazy that a human being has to eat. It's crazy.
Hashem wants me to eat.
Huh?
Hashem, God wants me to eat.
Yes. Lech lu'uman she'osani. This is not my idea. I was made like this. So what does that mean? I don't need to eat. He needs me to eat.
In other words, what you are saying is that you can't have a meaningful life with the evolutionary psychology perspective.
Absolutely.
You're just a mammal, you are just a slave to your needs, to your genes, to your everything else. And if there is nothing transcendent in men, and an unbridgeable gap between men and chimps, so what's the purpose of it anyhow? Anyway, why? Why do we even bother? So,
yes.
So you said, in other words, that maybe we got into this position of millennials that say, don't threaten me with your fears, that we can't turn the clock back to another thing, because it seems now that we got to a impasse. We can't do it anymore. It's almost impossible to keep going.
Yes.
So what do we need to do? Just a second, but what do we need to do in the US, in Israel? Because in Israel, whenever you speak about such a subject which relates to in some context to Judaism, people say, listen, don't תחזיר אותי בתשובה, yes? So how can, or even is it possible to incorporate this world or these ideas into a secular world? And if you say no, what's your trajectory?
It's not going to work if you secularize religion.
What do you mean by secularize religion? Because I think that this is a key point in our talk. What do you mean by secularizing, you got the idea, religion?
When you make religion your need, that's secularized.
And this brings us back to the Rambam, Guide for the Perplexed. The Judaism or the mitzvot or God is not about you. God is not like responsible for your things. You need to worship or to address God. God is not about what he gives you or takes care of you, which is a very, very different way of thinking about God than even the Hasidic folkloristic way of stories. The Baal Shem Tov, in the Baal Shem Tov stories, God takes care of you. He walks with you every step of the way. He takes care of you. In Berdichev, yes, you got the purse. God made me found it.
It's true. But that's because he needs you. He takes care of you, not because you need to be taken care of. He takes care of you because he needs you. The Baal Shem Tov said that a little boy who comes into shul on Yom Kippur doesn't know how to daven, can't read Hebrew, and he makes the sound of a rooster. That got through to God better than all the prayers of all the tzaddikim. How does that make any sense? How did this do anything for the boy? What did he get from this? Nothing. But it touched God. more than all the other prayers. So here's, I think we have to wrap it up. Here's the real punchline. The big mistake that we made, completely turning the world upside down. I need, God is perfect, he doesn't need anything. So what's the most important thing in the world?
The other. It's like the philosophy of Emmanuel Levinas. We need, or like Martin Buber, the other. It's not about you, it's always the other.
See, that's what transcendent means. Instead of my being needy, I respond to being needed.
Okay, okay. Could you give me like one final practical tip that I can get and imply in my marriage or in the viewer's marriage when I finish the conversation with you? What can I do? One practical thing, you know, that dissolve me, that will help me dissolve into one. You convinced me. Go on. Okay, I'm here with you. Go. Give me one thing.
Okay, so the first thing is absorb this message into your daily thinking. I don't need anything. That's step number one. I don't need. And because I don't need, the eventual question will be, so who does? I'm not here because I need. I'm here because someone else needs. Okay, now I need to know who needs me and for what. The answer is your creator. See, how does it make sense? The creator who creates the whole world, he doesn't need anything. I am a guest in his world and I'm needy. It doesn't make any sense.
You are a very bad guest.
How can God not be needy? You don't create a whole universe if you don't need anything. I don't have to be needy because I'm a guest. I didn't ask for any of this. If we can turn that thinking around, then if my wife is in a bad mood, I'll take care of her. Now, I need a wife I don't need anything. Stop.
She needs me to be on her side.
That's right.
My mother needs me to call her. And this is like a whole of a difference between I need to call my mother. And the other thing that I'm taking from our lovely and inspiring conversation is secular religion means religion that its focal point is me. And this, I think, yes. Secular religion.
Yeah. So to sum it up, if I marry you for your money, what I'm really saying is, can you just give me the money? Why do I have to marry you? Just give me the money. That's all I want. So if you could just give me the money, that would be perfect. I have to marry you to get the money.
Okay.
Yeah, marry you. But if the money's gone, no deal. All I want is your love and your sex. Give me the love and give me the sex. Your opinion I don't need. Thank you very much. And I don't need your moods and I don't need your personality. Just shut up and love me. If the love goes, you have no business being in my house. We do the same thing with God. All I want is to get to Gan Eden. I just want Olam Haba. Can't you just give me the Olam Haba? Do I have to do mitzvot and I have to... Okay, fine. If that's what it takes to get Olam Haba, I'll do it. It's so insulting. It's ugly. I'll do this to have Olam Haba, which means I don't need you. You're the complication. Just let me into Olam Haba. Stop making so many rules. You know what that's called? Christianity. Christianity is, oh, I can get into heaven for free? Wonderful. So who needs you? It's terrible. So here's again, the correct thinking. He, God, needs me a lot more than I need him. That's why we call it Ivdu et Hashem. Not Hashem serves me. So I'm talking to a minister, a Christian minister. Nice guy, but his first question was, do you believe in the Savior? So I said, I'm not interested in a God who's going to take care of me. I want to serve God. He started to cry. A middle-aged guy. He started to cry. He says, I never even thought of that. I never thought of that. God exists to serve me? I want to serve him because I don't need anything. And so when God calls Avraham, Avraham says, Hineni. You know what Hineni means? I don't need anything. I hope you need.
Do you think
I hope you need me because I don't.
Do you think it's possible to be transcendent with your wife without the notion of God?
The first step is not God. The first step is I don't need. That changes everything. Liberate yourself. Stop with the needy. I need. You're making yourself miserable.
And just be adult. And this is maybe why Jordan Peterson speaks to so many people, because I think he addresses this very same point of be an adult. And the meaning of adult, according to Peterson, is you need to take care of others. So Rabbi Manis, it was one hell of a journey. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that this helped me, I'm sure. And again, many, many thanks for your time.
It was a real pleasure because Pikuach Nefesh is a very big mitzvah. And this is literally Pikuach Nefesh.
Yes. Thank you so much. I will be more than happy to have you in like 1 month again. And just a second. Reli, what do you need? You need anything from me? And maybe next week, if we meet in Bet HaMikdash, it will be great. But nevertheless, if not, we will continue on the Zoom. Rabbi Manis Friedman, thank you so much for joining me up on the show today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.